Comrades, I am Admiral Andre, and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program. I'm really doubling down on the KSP episodes lately because I'm enjoying them so much. We've just fast-forwarded time here now. We are 30 days away from our window to transfer from Kerbin to Duna. And for that we will be launching the Mariner 4. Now that was the first flyby of Mars, so we're going to do that for Duna. However, there's another thing I'm going to do today. And again now here we have to keep in mind this is not necessarily historical. In fact, I know it's not, but there is some basis for it, of course, in history. But you know, this is now slowly but surely how we are diverging also from sort of following the space race timeline. And I want to launch the Gemini, which we have done already, but this time with the MOL attached, the Manned Orbital Laboratory, which in our case is of course the Kerballed Orbital Laboratory. So this will really be our first space station. Of course it's a temporary thing, so it will not be reused essentially, but it also makes sense because we have had some trouble lately to keep our Kerbals in orbit for a longer period. And of course the MOL was based in a real project. Of course it was scrapped, but again there is a very nice set of images and information and so on that I can draw inspiration from online. Now of course also the MOL was a project by the Air Force, so it was a military project, essentially a sort of a spy facility. But in our case, of course, all our projects are civilian and they serve science. So we will be training some scientists today. So the MOL was designed, as far as my information could show, for a maximum period of 40 days in orbit, and it was a polar orbit obviously, so you could see what was on the ground. But I think we can match that just for the sake of it. You know, we never have had a Kerbal in a polar orbit, so that will be an interesting thing. Now also the other thing is we will keep them there for the full 40-day period, and then also of course that means we will have the MOL, or the COL I guess, in orbit when we launch for Duna as well. So it overlaps nicely. Now what have I done? I have also recruited 2 more Kerbals. Just as I forwarded time, occasionally I stop and just see if there's anyone that we can recruit. And to that I saw Ellen and Haley. Now of course those are names I can pronounce readily, so I like them, and they are both engineers, so they are going to contribute to the whole engineering effort there. So our corps of astronauts or Kerbonauts is growing nicely. Now let us go to the VAB and then look at the MOL and then see what I did there. Okay comrades, so let's have a look. We'll just open it up here. I have built the thing already, and you can see it's actually an auto-saved ship, but it is also saved right here. Now the MOL with the Gemini B was actually launched by the Titan IIIC booster. Now in this case, obviously again we are limited, we can't always recreate things exactly, but that's not the point. So in this case what I've taken is again the same core booster here, or the upper stage is exactly the same as we saw previously, but the bottom stage now just has an extra fuel tank. Then attached of course are the 2 solid fuel boosters, and this is really the first time we are using solid fuel boosters in our space program to launch actual spacecraft, not the X-15. Now in this case of course we are again limited by the color scheme and all of that, but I have tried to recreate these little side tanks here, and apparently this was to inject some sort of chemical, I forget the name, tetrazine or something, to actually help vector or steer the solid fuel boosters. At least that's what I could gather, although I admit I didn't look too deeply into it. But in accordance with that, we have this fuel pipe now, so we can imagine that is some integral component there. Then, of course, these tanks are empty. They are really just the structural housing for the 4 thumper solid fuel boosters on each side. They are all set to 100% thrust, and they burn out in 42 seconds. And then, of course, we have 2 tiny little separatrons there just to give us some separation. Then the center stage will, of course, continue to burn. I ignite it at the same time as the solid fuel boosters, but the real version actually ignited, I think, 2 seconds after the solid fuel boosters. But in our case, that's not really necessary. Then, of course, the upper stage we know and love already, and then after that we get the mol, or the coal, I guess. So in this case, what I've also done, because the Gemini craft in that configuration, the Gemini B, didn't have the same service pack here. It was an adapter section, so it was a bit different there. So in our case, this is literally just a decoupler, and then of course we have our retro engines, and then we return home. Now, the real thing there, the Gemini B used 6 solid-fueled retro thrusters to return to Earth, but of course we've looked at that before, so I'm sticking to the 4 liquid-fueled ones. I also have a fuel cell still in there like before, but that is really just for the backup. Then, let's see, what else? Of course, then we get to the actual laboratory section. Now, there was, of course, the living quarters and some scientific and other observational facilities as well. And, of course, some room for experiments and cargo and that sort of thing. So, in our case, it's just served by the mobile processing lab and, of course, the Mark II lander can. So, this is the living section as far as I imagine it. And, of course, in this case, now, I'm not sure what the mol was originally designed to do, whether it was designed to have solar panels, but some of the images on the Google image search actually show solar panels, 2 large ones on the side. So I'm not sure if that was now going to be a later model or not, but in our case I think that actually works very well, because that's how we get around the fuel cell problem. So at least we can fast forward time safely then. I also have some extra batteries on the bottom, which you will see when we are in orbit. So we can actually, if we pass behind the planet, of course, or there's an eclipse, we are not going to die here. Everything is fine. We have more than enough electric charge. Of course, we also need life support other than electric charge, and for that I installed these 2 hex cans here. Now, of course, we don't need that many supplies, but this is also as an attachment point for the solar panels, and the mol laboratory had sort of a flat section on each side for that. So I guess this is a decent, in my view anyway, a decent recreation, and I'm very happy with it. So of course there was a hole in the heat shield, and that's how the crew could actually get into the laboratory. Now this laboratory, and here I have to say I'm not sure what the real thing would have done, but this laboratory does not have any thrusters here at the back, so it can't actually increase or decrease its orbit, and once we detach from it, it stays there as space debris. But that is again another memento to our achievements. So I think that's that really. There's not much more to say about it. But I have to say, this booster, I am so much in love with this thing. Obviously I had to extend these beyond the tank there, and just so they could line up nicely and all of that, but still I like the look of it. And this now makes it our most powerful booster to date. So now you see, my comrades, we can start to deviate a little bit from the sort of history. Of course, again, following history exactly was never the intention, but we could even in theory use this to launch a Gemini mission to the moon or something. I don't know. We can now start to use more and more imagination as we get more and more components. So of course we don't have to rebuild the things the whole time. But I'll think probably we have to start at some point with the Apollo, what was it, the Saturn 1B and those kinds of things. So I'm not sure what we would have used, or the real world would have used for a Gemini lunar mission. I'll have to research that, of course. But, you know, I'm just throwing some ideas out there because I'm really in love with this booster, as I said. So, anyway, let's see. What else do I need to now do? Of course, we have a small computer core right there again that I'm going to have to control from. And that also means, now again, here is no wheel authority on anything. So, we do not have reaction wheels, but that will help us to, of course, just lock to prograde and basic things like that. And also it allows us to include 2 scientists on the mission, because it seems to me that's really what we would want. Of course, we're not going to get real science out of this. This is not a career campaign, but we want to train our scientists, and this is a lab, you know, and of course this is not a military mission but a civilian one. So let's look at our crew. So, of course, I could throw many more crew members in here, but they will perish in orbit, so I'm not going to do that. Now, Jebediah has had so much experience in space, he does not need to go to this mission as well, so he can sit this one out. Now, Bob has some experience, so let's send 2 inexperienced crew members up. I know there's always a risk. Of course, this is Kerbal, so it doesn't matter. But, you know, everyone has to start somewhere. So let's send up Karen Kerman and Carlin Kerman. They are going to train in orbit for 40 days and gain a great deal of experimental data. You can imagine all the kinds of experiments they will be doing in the laboratory section there. Then, of course, later we can train others as well. So this is also our first all-female crew, which is another milestone. So, with that said, I'm going to do the same as usual and just fast forward this. But I think maybe the first part I'll not fast forward so much, just because I really love the launch of this thing with these solid-fueled boosters. I think it's really impressive. So, I think there I'll just, instead of using the normal 400% speed up, I'll probably do it 200% or something. So, yes, we're going to go for the polar orbit. Now, I'll try to do it as perfectly polar as possible. Of course, we do have the inclination readout the whole time. So, you will see me sort of swinging around there to try and get the thing as close to 90 as possible. Of course, to the inclination, 90 is straight up and down. And of course, we will be launching to the south so that these boosters do not fall onto land towards the north. So, with that said, save again and launch. Oh yes, hold the launch, hold. I was thinking, should we throw lights on this thing? Because we could even do a spacewalk here, you know. We have sort of an extra airlock there. But now, of course, these now sort of expand into the mods. Now, I'm wondering, is this something that we want to do? Why not? Everything here is 100% stock as it stands, except, of course, for the life support there. But then, why not throw some lights on the thing? Let's try that, you know. Let's use the small ones. Just in 4x configuration, and we'll throw another set right there. There we go. That's it. We don't need anything more than that. And yes, that's it. Let's go. Actually, comrades, I was a bit hasty there. I also wanted to mention just this whole thing about the solar panel sticking out there. Now, I'm not sure if the real thing would have used a fairing there, but in our case, this will have to do. But also, I'm thinking now again, this is the first time that we're launching this booster, so I'm not going to fast forward it. We have to see it in action. I mean, that's really the point. And then later on, after we've done it the first time, we can fast forward. So let us launch. 3. No, let's go from 5. 5, 4, 3. Wait. Abort. Hold. Let's just not get too hasty here. I'm going to say just aim the camera onto this section and then, of course, control from here. You know, real life launches have holds all the time. Control from here. There we go. Alright, now we continue. 3, 2, 1. Ah, what a beauty. I love that so much. Okay, so we're going to start turning over now, but at a slight angle because we still have to offset the planet's rotation a little bit. Okay, lock to prograde and just leave it right there. And let's hope for the best. Oh man, this Real Plume mod is fantastic. I love the effects here. The smoke trail goes almost all the way to the ground. Okay, we're ready to separate soon. And there they go, perfectly safely. So they will be landing there in the ocean. So now of course we lose a lot of our thrust. We actually go backwards a little bit in our acceleration, but then we start picking up again, which is to me not necessarily a bad thing. We're still maintaining our climb and everything, and it was very short. It was quickly reversed there again. But also then we don't really have to slack off in order to avoid heating effects. So it's really a win-win. So I just leave this now on prograde. There's a slight wobble here, but that's fine. We'll just see there what's happening with the inclination. That has to reach 90. And then of course I have to ditch the nose cap there soon. Okay, we do have a bit more than a little bit of a wobble. Okay, we've almost reached it there. It's going to switch now. There, so where are we? 89 degrees, that's almost perfect. So I think I'm not going to meddle with that now. Let's just ditch the cap. There we go, so we don't need it. We're in the upper atmosphere. And this is a very bizarre thing now. In my one test that I did, I didn't get this weird fluctuation. But okay, never mind that. And the thing blows up there. That's strange. I wonder why, when we launched the normal Gemini, that didn't happen. Oh well, doesn't really matter, it's expendable. Doesn't hurt the upper stage here. Let's just get this thing slightly away and more towards the 90. Okay, back to prograde please, that will do. So let's see, what's our altitude going to be? I think we should aim for a slightly higher orbit this time, maybe around 200 kilometers? I think so, why not? They'll get an excellent view from up there. This is probably now because again the mass is not perfectly centered here because of the lights and various things. And of course we have no reaction control here, so it's only the engine that has to stabilize the offsets there. What happens if I decrease the gimbal? It doesn't make any difference really. Oh well, we're almost there. Oh, we've gone past it. Never mind that. Let's turn on the RCS and just keep it locked to prograde and then fast forward. So we've got more than enough fuel for this. 52 seconds left. Let's get to roughly 30 seconds and then just of course point in the right direction. There's a moon and min-miss, everything is looking wonderful. I think we should probably burn now. And yes, so how much monopropellant do we have here? I think it's really only what's on the capsules, to be honest. I don't think there's any extra monopropellant, but we don't really need it. We're not going to do orbital changes here. Now we're already climbing, so let's just go a bit closer again. There we go. Just again roughly circular. 208 by 204. Perfect in my book. Let's just switch to the free camera. That works better in an orbital or a polar orbit. And then we only have 23 seconds of fuel left. So I think this is actually quite a good configuration here because we don't want to waste fuel. So let's ditch this thing. This will change the orbit slightly again. Shouldn't do it by much though. Oh, barely noticeable. Of course, I think we can just turn off the RCS because it's clearly still trying to do something. Okay, little bit, but you know, that's really unavoidable. Now, of course, the upper stage here will drift away from us over time. So you can see at the back here, there's where the batteries are. I just let them stick out a bit there just for the appearance sake. Now, let's roll to the... Let's just have a look. Where would be the upper side? It doesn't matter again. There's no up and down here. Really, the viewport should point to the bottom. Now, of course, again, the slight angle there is changing our orbit, but we'll just bounce off of that. It's not any danger. Okay, and really all that we want to do is that. We're not going to make any other maneuvers. So let us just deploy the solar panels. I think it is safe to do so at this point. Very impressive solar panels for a relatively small station. Then also the antenna. Okay, now that thing might break off. Let's just wait a moment. We can extend the normal Gemini antenna. And then, now, yes, extend. Good, now that thing is still beneath us, so its orbit should be slightly slower. Now this is a fantastic view, comrades. Let's just turn off all of the stability tracking there. And there we are, there is the Kerbal manned, I guess, no, Kerballed orbital laboratory. And I'm really happy with this, comrades, I have to say. That's why I'm so in love with that booster, because it just performs so wonderfully. Now, let's see, what else could we find out here? Let's move the crew over now to the living quarters. And then, I don't think there's really anything else I need to do. Transfer to there. And do the same here, transfer straight to the lab. So there is a very basic, of course, computer system that will just keep the basic functions running here, so they don't actually have to do that themselves the whole time. And let us appreciate the view. Now again, unfortunately, I forgot to put cameras on here, but that's not really so important. Just stunning. I love the auroras and everything here. Now, are we drifting slightly here? But I guess that would happen as we are passing over the pole. Our inclination is 90.3 degrees, so it is almost perfectly on the nose there. Now, our life support, we have 39 days, so that's the closest I could get it to the 40, because, of course, if you change the slider, it will jump there by many days, not just one. So 39 days, and then 1 day, of course, of electricity. So if there is some kind of eclipse or something, we will not have any issues surviving for 1 day. Now let's go around. Let's just speed this up a little bit. Of course, everything will flip now as we go over the pole. Actually, let's just stop there. Let's have a look at this thing. See. There. Oh my goodness. Now that is our thumbnail for today, F1. Look at that. Good grief, I love this so much. There's the pole and we see an aurora and everything. Now let's punch up some information here. Let's say I want to see the vessel. So there is the orbital laboratory. Let's put up some, not necessarily altitude and things. We want to see the resources. Okay, so there we can now monitor everything. And what else would we like to see? We don't need to see the nav ball now or any real speed and all of that information. What is useful? Let's have a look. Celestials, vessels, space objects. Let's try and play around with this stuff. Wow, okay, so this tells us where things are. What happens if I press... Oh, it targets that. Okay, so we could actually do that ourselves. Reference part, clear target, filters, crew EVA. What happens if I click that? No. I think they'll probably actually EVA now. No. Let's try other menus. That's fine. It's just more information where we are right now. So, yes, I love this so much. Anyway, let's speed it up a little bit more. And, oh dear, there's another picture that's worth 1,000 words. Of course, there's a strange effect from the aurora here. You can actually see the layering. But we can speed up and see what it looks like on the other side of the planet. Now, in this case, again, comrades, this is a perfect opportunity for Moonlight Sonata. So let's play that. Okay, so we are now passing right over the day side here, and the crew is very happy. They are moving about and doing all sorts of experiments here, and it's really working out very well. So yes, I'm wondering if we should launch the Mariner now, or we could do that in the next episode. No, I think we probably should launch it now, just because then the next episode is going to be full of the actual transit to Duna. Now, let's just see, is everything still fine? Everything is in one day, so I'm just going to hope that stays the way it is. Let me just F5 in case. I do not want them to die, and I'm going to fast forward 30 days now. So I'm going to go back to the Space Center, and in 30 days I will speak to you again, comrades. Comrades, I'm just jumping in here. I'm busy editing the video now. Actually, this gives you a small bit of insight into how I do that, but I'm thinking here really, we can end this episode off after the launch of the Mole here and then leave the Mariner 4 for a separate episode. Otherwise, there's too much of it happening in the same one. So that is why you will see I'm ending the episode off here apparently, but I will just continue it in the next one. So thank you for watching, comrades. I hope you're enjoying and have a fantastic day as always.